lot of people didn't know. Like, I think a lot of people with Kathryn Kuhlman, well, for one thing, they didn't know that she had a weekly meeting, and but she was quite a teacher, right? I mean,
Yeah.
she taught everything from end times, and she, and like I said, I mean, there was always that aspect of the power of God and
Right.
the healing
Right.
and everything like that. But she preached full on. I even remember that. I mean,
Yeah,
she
the
was
things are-
she was a preacher, a
Yeah,
teacher.
yes, she was.
What were some of the things that? And then she also wrote. She wrote
Books.
books and letters.
but
But
we-
but I mean, even to the people that you guys regularly, because you attended there, you were tithers,
Mhm.
and so she would send out a letter all the time.
And she sent out if we had prayer requests. I did have a prayer request, very important prayer request about somebody that was going through a lot of stuff and they were not born again, and it didn't look like that they would gonna make it. And I wrote her a letter, and that's what most of the people that went there all the time that had requests and things that they wanted to
Mm-hmm.
talk to her about. That's what we did. We wrote letters, and I'll never forget that. I wrote a letter to her about this individual, and I said I felt they needed to be born again, and it was a relative, close relative, and I gave her the name of them. Now she wouldn't mention any last names. She'd maybe mention a first name.
Mm-hmm.
And I sent her this letter at the beginning of the week before we went to church the next weekend. And the next week, when we were in church and the power of God was moving, and she was praying for needs, people that was sick, whatever. And she mentioned this person's name and mentioned details. It was in my letter.
Amen.
And I knew that she knew who her people were, and she was very faithful to carry out the requests.
And in those letters, she would share things that God had spoken to her, or what was on her heart, or what she felt like the Lord was saying and doing in those times and hours. It was just, for you, even now to hear you say, you were 19, 20, 21, and, you're 80 now. I'm approaching 60 years of age. It's like sometimes you don't even know. Like I said, I was 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That was our normal.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what you grew up in, to have her be your normal, to have her be your preacher, your pastor, to have that level of impartation and teaching. We were even talking about how, for us, you came out of a rural farming community in western Pennsylvania, a lot of Amish and the Dutch, and that kind of genealogy. And here we're going to Youngstown, Ohio, where people are coming in from buses from New York, and you had Italians and blacks and whites and Chinese. Every race of people under this roof was just, again, the exposure and what became our normal was a pretty. What did you think about that? Just
It was a good combination, and it also gave us the more reaching out to anybody and everybody. It didn't matter what nationality or what was, that they were all people are valuable.
Yeah, I mean, because you even got to think at that time, right? The United States is in the midst of desegregation, and the Kent State shooting that happened in Ohio too. The protests against the Vietnam War, and I even remember she went later. She would do a healing crusade over in, I believe it was Laos, and
I don't know.
Vietnam.
I don't.
She went there, and she was did a huge fundraiser, I know, for wheelchairs and stuff
Yeah,
for
she
all
did.
of the people that were mutilated and stuff in the war and everything. And so all of that was going on, and again, we could have been, as a family, we could have just been stuck in rural Pennsylvania, but God was showing us the kingdom, right? Because I mean, just to even think that she started in the 20s and 30s when women preachers, that was like,
Yeah, no.
that was a big no-no. So even that, you probably got a lot of your boldness and ability, right? Because later you would get ordained, and you're out here doing street ministry and stuff like that. That was something completely new and different. I mean, people weren't doing that back then, especially how you were raised, right?
Right. The secret to it all is the Holy Spirit, having the power of God, not just salvation. The Holy Spirit comes in at salvation, yes, but there's much, much more to receive from God if we will hunger and thirst for it, and also spend time with God, lots of time in the Word and in prayer. That's a lot of my growth.
Right, just hearing from the Holy Spirit.
But I did have good examples. I mean, Miss Kuhlman was, she
She set the bar high.
What she talked, she walked.
Yeah.
She walked it.
Yeah.